Oh, I leave it there. So for the first time in a long time, hmm, Arsenal, you know it. And this something I'm starting with this because I really want us to think about just how life can be like being in a football team, how life can be about a football match. And we're just coming off the World Cup season, and winners be winning. And just I want us to have a bit of a mentality in that direction as we build up on this new conversation. So welcome to Financials with Ahawo. It's Ahawo. It's a blessing to be able to be bringing you our podcast, Financial Wellness Conversations, and we are talking about income growth in this season. And we're hinging off what we've been talking about around building multiple streams of income. And believe it or not, we just started a conversation with the production team about just optimizing, different opportunities in our hands. And yes, even the production team is putting into practice the things we are doing. It's just a blessing to see how God is encouraging us to grow our income. So allow me to start with several scriptures. You know the trick. God's word, foundation. The first one is Isaiah 54, verse 2. And it says, enlarge the place of your tent, and let the curtains of your habitations be stretched out. Do not hold back. Lengthen your cords and strengthen your sticks, for you will spread abroad to the right and to the left. And your offspring will possess the nations and will people the desolate cities. So God is telling us that there's a place of stretching, that this will have a certain amount for a time, that He will need us to live beyond that. The other one is Isaiah 9, verse 7, and it says, of the increase of His government and of peace, there will be no end, on the throne of David and over His kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and righteousness from this time forth and forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this. So the larger context of this is actually around the prophecy around the coming of Christ. Then as people of faith, we come under the promises that Christ was given. And we see that God is desirous of all the things that He has spoken over us to be accomplished. Just as the prophecy around Christ was accomplished, the things that God has promised us in our life will come to pass. Then Isaiah 37, verse 32. And this one says, for out of Jerusalem shall go a remnant, and out of Mount Zion a brand of survivors. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this. I wanted to highlight that God is desirous for us. Even if sometimes it feels small, sometimes you feel like that investment, other people have had the head start. I was reading a statistic the other day, and I think it was for me, like, how come down? And they were talking about the average age around which people do certain things. And believe it or not, the average age around which people buy a home is 38. So some of us will be sitting down somewhere and we're looking and we're like, it doesn't look like I'm starting even to one space. But remember, it's average. So average means many people will fall above it and another number would fall below it. So whichever side of the two you are in, you are within God's temple, and the zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform it for you. So how do we organize to grow? So one of the income channels or income growth avenues I want us to think about is business. And as relating it to football, because of how football can have just an interesting perspective in how things happen. Football has a football pitch where the game is played. Football has those who play the game. And these teams are constituted of 11 playing on the field, but we know there are so many goals around this game. Football has the referees who are part of the game. And even before we move to those, within the team, they are the defenders, they are the strikers, they are the goalkeepers, the midfielders. All of these people have a different role. And I want you to think about your investment, growing your income in that way. And then we have the fans, the people who are cheering. Some are making positive comments, encouraging those on my page, and some are even like looking at the referees. We were during the World Cup. We know people are like that referee, that coach, that I remember distinction. I had a couple of people discussing of how a certain country, if I say it, I don't trouble. They fired their coach and then hired a new coach and then fired the new coach. Like there are so many things that I want you to think about income and to just relate it to what's happening or what could happen in a football environment. And the income that we grow through doing business is something where many people like to call it hustle, a side tip, a gig economy. What other words do we use? My extra. There's a word. It's goal. If it comes, I will say it later. But there's just all these different ones that we've been trying to that have been used to explain someone venturing into a business. And I know some of you have been listening here to, oh, how you just be talking about, this other investment. But what about me? Who has an interest in business? Who has an interest in just putting my skills out there? Whether I want to create as a consultant, whether I want to have an individual company, whether I want to create with others, but I just want to put my skills out there and build a business. So how important is that? And allow me to just tell you, it's something all of us are gifted and called different. So some of us will grow our income through salary, and somebody else will go through entrepreneurship. So if you have the entrepreneurship bent, karibu sana. Welcome. You're a good company. So starting last year, as I was thinking through just how to build myself, how to grow, I had a bit of time in my hands. I decided to just keep learning from the people around me. So someone in my network told me Google has a program they do that's very good for people in business. Why don't you go and spend a full week, it's like a really intense week, and learn from them? And I took time and I was like, let me learn. Let me see what they can say. Right now, the world is moving so fast. There is so much for you to learn from. And I picked a few pointers from them. So I'm saying this actually, this is not all. I picked a few pointers from them. One of the first things that we need to do if we're going to grow our income through entrepreneurship is to actually have a strategy. And a strategy will have different things inside it. You have to look at the strengths of what you want to do, the weaknesses of what you want to do, the opportunities of what you want to do, the threats of what you want to do. And it's so boring. Like sometimes the boring work is the most important work. But what does that do for you? It allows your mind to begin to envision the fullness of this idea. This year actually, as I've grown and just been more prominent in doing financial wellness, I've had young people reach out to me and ask me, how I want to do a business. What business can I do? What direction can I angle it? And I'll circle back to them with a question. And it's like, I know when you ask someone a question, you want an answer, and then they give you a question and you're just like, really? But I'll tell them, what needs do you see around you? What opportunities do you see around you? Not far, not what's happening globally, around you, near you, within you. What's the need? Maybe in my space, for me to be doing financial wellness, I've seen that there's a gap in financial wellness within the young people I deal with, or I've seen there's a gap in benchmarking and working with the Word of God as an arrow, as a guide, as an, is it arrow? No, as a compass towards your financial wellness. This being cognizant to the things around you that are needs that you can meet. And they don't need to be high-hanging things. I remember when I began to do the African fabrics business, and I've shared this before, so indulge me and listen again. I asked myself, what do I love about the African continent? And I was like, I love how people dress. But sometimes I feel it's underrepresented because it's just been associated with for events, for the weekend. And I began asking myself, like, how can I be part of this? But how can I also begin to think of a different narrative to put this forward as not just how we dress, but as a way of life, as a way of how we express ourselves as Africans. So it's beginning to really strategize and to look at these four things: the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats, and angle your business in such a direction. Sit down with a blank paper. There is power in writing. I say this again. Sit down with a blank paper. Write, these are the plans I could have, the places I could do, these are the places I could work with. I remember last year, one of my mentees pushed me. Yeah, I'm also always learning. And she pushed me and she told me, Aha, I'm always hearing you talk about your ideas. And I know you have them written down somewhere. But why don't you put them in a place where you can see them? And I wrote down the different enterprises that I have been thinking about that are already active, and I angled them. Who do they target? What are their timelines? What are their taglines? What social media is best to optimize it? Is this a going concern if I'm already doing it, or should I reconsider it? Am I going to do it alone? Am I going to do it with others? So already your mind is not just dreaming about it, but you're framing it. And that will give you capacity to overcome the barriers to grow this income. And I love something we picked from the Hustle Academy. They said, solve your problems like a consultant. And I was like, that's interesting. I'm interested in consultancy. So when they're telling me to solve my problems like a consultant, what are they asking me to do? And there were 5 things that were so key for us. They told us, be curious, be flexible in your thinking, bring emotional intelligence into the picture, analyze, allow your mind to be willing to analyze, and then be objective. When you set yourself up in this way, you're already angling your entrepreneurial side, your entrepreneurial journey towards growth. So number 1 is strategy. Number 2, think about, so as you build that strategy, the strategy will have different things. So how will you get this business to the people? Today, there are multiple tools. Trust you me, I didn't even know when I'm using Canva, I'm using AI. Until last week, I was doing the financial wellness journal for Q2, and I had an idea to add something new to the journal. So I'm like, how will I do it? I'm thinking about how I'll create it. So I put it on Google. How do I create this? Do you know the first option it gave me is go to Canva? And I'm like, wait, I'm already creating the journal on Canva. So you mean this tool? I went to Canva and I'm in, I don't even think it was a minute. Canva had generated for me what I needed to do. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like there are things within my hands that I can use. Who have I reached? Who haven't I reached yet? When I began to do the financial wellness conversations, it was just within my community. I talked to the young women in my church, the young women who I've worked with, and then God began to use the same young women to tell me, you have good content that you can share with others. You are a knowledge opportunity for others. Why don't you put yourself in a new space? And I began to angle in that way. So they were the first people to push me to sell myself out of my comfort zone, then to encourage me to use the tools. I'm trying to really remember who even introduced me to Canva. This one I might have to credit one of my siblings, but it was just an avenue that got me growing. It got me thinking, what does digital marketing mean? What does putting the business out there? Believe it or not, currently I'm so engaged in the social media side of what we do. Sometimes the team we work with are like, hiya, how we've already posted. I'm like, yeah, see, we have all the content. We've posted on Instagram, we've posted on TikTok, we've posted on Spotify, we've posted on LinkedIn, we've posted on the WhatsApp channel, like we're everywhere we need to be. Because I've been asking myself, how do I grow? How do I move? How do I penetrate a new market? Are there commercial opportunities that we can use in the right channels to keep growing what we're doing as an entrepreneur? And when I started, I didn't even think of it as really an income source. I just thought of it as something I want to do. When I started the fabric, I thought of it as an income source for sure. I was not even negotiating. I knew this was an income source, and I even began to calculate how to make income from it. But when I started to do what we do with financial wellness, it was just putting information out there. But the more I've done it, the more I've seen the opportunities. And this is where I'm building up on number 3, begin to do it. Many times in our journey towards entrepreneurship, we don't step out because there's always another maybe. Maybe. Allow me to move from the financial wellness and back to the fabric. I remember one year, I had a very consistent client. Every time, like it was like clockwork. At the end of the year or beginning of the year, she would pick something from me. And then she came and she's like, oh, by the way, I've been wanting this particular item. I didn't have nothing. Like there was nothing in stock, there was nothing coming. And I remember asking God, like, what do we do? So it's like today, I'm supposed to meet her tomorrow afternoon. I knew I had cash, I could move and get one, two, three things, but I just didn't know how to optimize it to make sure that I deliver what she wanted. I slept. The next morning, God had given me the idea. I was able to get what she needed, and it pushed me into a new business line in the fabric space. So begin to do so that as you do, you begin to angle yourself out. You begin to experience the things that will help you grow that income stream. The other thing is, how do you lead? One of the things that I challenged myself to do is, even though right now I might be the core person with a support team, is to have a contract as much as possible. Like anything that needs to be contracted, that can be contracted, that can be detailed well with deliverables, to detail it out. Because what am I doing? As I lead myself, I'm able to lead others around me. So when we are working with the team and they see, Ahawo has posted, Ahawo has done the things we needed to do, even for them, they're able to follow through. Always remember a statistic I read that the 10% in the room who are doing an excellent job have capacity to bring everybody else on board. But if you have no one doing an excellent job, everybody stays where they are. And I realized, since I'm the one dreaming this, I'm the one who wants to grow entrepreneurship as an income source, then I am going to have to be the first 10% in the room. So sometimes the teams are like, yeah, how you finished this already? You've done this already. I'm like, yeah. Like if I've done it and I've done it well, I give you a good foundation to also do what you need to do and to support me in the way I need to be supported. Then also, as you set up your business to grow, you need to document. You need to understand, what does growth look like? What does scaling look like? For me, that was such an aha moment during the sessions. And I was like, wow. Like I used to think, oh, I'm growing, I'm scaling, were interchangeable words, but they are not. Growing will look like you want more income. Growing will look like resources being put into your business. But scaling will look like, what do you have that you can optimize? What are the things that you need to get better at? Augment what process so that your business can go to where you want to do. Scaling will involve something like, are you communicating? One of the things I remember we agreed with the team when it came to financial wellness is that every week, on a certain day at a certain time, we will have our content out there. So already we've created a consistency in the mind of those who want to grow with us. Another thing I agreed is, when it comes to the fabric, at least one day of the week, we'll have a post, we'll have a quote, we'll have an idea, we'll have a conversation around fabrics so that we grow and find opportunities, because we are constantly in that space. So even as you begin to think about entrepreneurship, even as you begin to actually put it into practice, you also have to have the right word that you use. And these words, sometimes we call them taglines, sometimes we call them the pullers, the ones that when you hear, I'm trying to think of a common one, the ones that you hear and you're like, this one is how, like you don't even need to see me to know. Like if you hear journey into financial wellness, you know it's a how. If you hear dressing Africa with love, you know it's a how African fabrics. So finding strong taglines that can help to advance your business. Take time again to do the boring. What's your mission statement? What's your vision? Take time to do your problem statements. Boring, boring things, but extremely important for where you want your business to go. Because remember how we started? When the young people around me were asking what businesses they can do, I was telling them to identify the problem. I was telling them to see how they can be a solution. But they need to document this. They need to write it down so that they can see how it's growing, how it's maturing into what they want it to be. So even as we think through using entrepreneurship as an income growth, you really have to be willing to do the work. You really have to be willing to do the work. And I love one of the big names who has made it and is actually growing entrepreneurship as an income source. They also say it's okay to accept that for a time you might even just be self-employed. It's just you. You are the accountant, you are the CEO, you are the marketer, you are the everything. But think from the perspective of one day there will be a team. And even for me, the moment I began to think like that, I began to actually see this as income sources. I began to walk into a room and get ideas. I began to ask the people around me for feedback, positive feedback, negative feedback, and just grow. And that's going to be extremely important if you want to build entrepreneurship as an income source. So even as we build on these conversations around entrepreneurship, there'll be quite a number of links. I have not even touched the head of it. There are things you need to do, like determining your revenue goals. There are things you need to do, like actually taking time to get insights. If you're going to be using online marketing tools, doing analysis. When we were starting the podcast, our guest producer, Emmanuel, he did for us an analytic. We sat down with the production team and we're like, where do we start? Do we have to revamp the whole channel? Do we have to? But we had to see who we are so that we could see who we want to become. So allow me to land there and leave you with a challenge right now. If entrepreneurship is an income source you're going to use, also surround yourself with like-minded people. Bring yourself into a community that will challenge you to grow in that space. I've heard of multiple communities in Nairobi. They meet, they sell and buy from each other, they introduce each other, they attend functions that make sure that they're growing each other, but you're going to need that too. Allow me to connect us back to the football and just what and how it links to entrepreneurship. So if you're thinking through a football match and you're thinking through, this team has won, the only reason they won is that every play was done the way it was supposed to be. The coach signaled and they remembered. The team member passed and they were present to move it to the next person. They saw how the other team was playing. They learned the game in many ways and they put in their effort so that their team could win. And finally, they still trusted God. Let me tell you, we will not remove the God factor. And I will remind us that God will bless what we do. If we do our plays well in growing our income through entrepreneurship, God will also do his play well in bringing supply. And as we started, the zeal of the Lord shall surely perform it for us. Thank you so much. This is my team. I know someone asked me why this random team. Look for me in person if you want to know why this random